the future of modern mass armies will probably lie, at least as it seems right now, in reorienting of these squads of roughly 10 people onto using drones, okay, instead of machine guns previously. Greetings, this is Eugene the Philosopher, the greatest living philosopher after the unfortunate passing of Quentin Robert D. Nameland, who has been the greatest living philosopher before me. Okay, in this video I want to talk about drone warfare, okay, specifically the lessons that can be and will be, I think, this is kind of my hypothesis, okay, learned from the war in Ukraine that is currently ongoing for 5th year already, is it? I think, yeah, 5th year, okay. Anyway, actually, if you're still curious about the reasons for the war in Ukraine, take a look at my very old video again, from right when the war started, from March 2022. The war started in February, obviously, but, anyway, why is there a war in Ukraine? That video of mine was called. Take a look in the description. Anyway, so let's take a look about, take a look at, the developments of warfare in the last, I don't know, 200 years or so, okay? So a lot of people have talked about already, mainly like military-related channels, how the development, the invention of a machine gun have completely transformed, at the very least, the infantry warfare, right? Because previously you've had like lines of riflemen or musketeers, walking towards each other and just shooting at each other, right? But once the machine gun was invented, that was no longer the case because, well, a single machine gun can just maul all of those people down, right? So what people started doing is wearing camouflage instead of those, super colorful, like feathery stuff, and walking in open. They started digging down, actually, they started, camouflaging themselves and the general, like, formation kind of disappeared. Now everything happens around a unit, which is called a squad, which is roughly speaking 10 people, right? I mean, ever since the invention of a machine gun. And all those 10 people, a squad, at least in infantry terms, are usually again centered around the machine gun that one of them is carrying, okay? So yeah, in case you're unfamiliar with this terminology, like the sizes of military units, so let me give a very rough picture of what it is. I'm gonna skip some and I'm gonna be giving you a very rough estimates again. So we have a squad, which is basically 10 people. So those are, it's basically centered around this trope of human attention, right? You can't really have your attention on more than like 7 things, and I'm just rounding it up to 10. Like some squads have 5 people, some have 10, something like that. Okay, so squad is 10 people. Again, previously in infantry they centered around the machine gun. Then platoon is basically 3 squads, so that would be roughly 30 people. Again, it could be 5, it could be 7. We'll say 3. So 30 people is a platoon, squad 10, platoon 30. Then we have a company, which is roughly 3 platoons. So that would be roughly 90 or 100. Let's round it up, people, right? Then we have a battalion, which is 3 companies. So that would be 300 people. Then we have a regiment, which is like a 3 battalions. So roughly 900 or 1,000 people, let's say. Then we have a brigade, which is roughly 3 regiments, so that would be like 3,000 people. Then we have a division, so roughly 3 brigades, so roughly 9,000, or we round up to 10,000 people. And we have a corps, which is like 3 divisions, so that would be 30,000 people. And we have an army, okay, which is like 3 corps, which would be 90,000, or we round up to 100,000, okay? Yeah, so the point I was making in this segment is that the squad, ever since the invention of a machine gun, was centered around the machine gun itself, right? So that made perfect sense, all right? However, let's talk about something different. That's what is usually understood, okay? And what has been understood in the last 100 years at least, right? When the machine gun kind of ruled the infantry combat. However, what people usually do not recognize, at least I haven't seen that much discussion about this, is how artillery, since the Napoleonic times, all the way up to the World War I, actually increased in its importance significantly. Namely, in Napoleonic times, so that would be, you know, the beginning of 19th century, so roughly 200 years ago, artillery was responsible for roughly 20% of enemy casualties, okay? So artillery's impact on the war is roughly 20%, at least in terms of casualties. And in the First World War, artillery's impact was already enhanced to 60% of casualties, okay? So, of course, this lack of, you know, eye-to-eye combat of these lines of people, riflemen shooting at each other helped a lot. So when people dig down, you know, what can get them? Artillery, basically, right? So, but nevertheless, anyway, long story short, my point is this, that ever since the World War I, any big conflict is mostly governed, in the full sense of this word, by artillery, okay? So artillery makes up the biggest chunk of enemy's casualties in any serious conflict of any serious powers, okay? Between any serious powers. So ever since the Industrial Revolution, basically any big conflict is determined by artillery, okay? I mean, obviously it is kind of recognized that, you know, artillery is the king of battle or whatever they say. But anyway, usually it's what is seen, like this machine gun story is presented, right? And people kind of forget that it's actually the artillery that is the king of modern warfare, right? And if we talk about like the developments of artillery ever since, like specifically like aircraft and like guided munitions, for example, like I'm talking about like the late 20th century, right? Specifically like American doctrine of air superiority plus, you know, laser guided bombs, tomahawks, all those fancy stuff, right? So the problem with this fancy stuff is that it can disable only really underdeveloped nations, let's put it this way, or let's not even talk about nations, but rather opponents, right? Adversaries, or whatever is a fancy word, who don't even want to fight in the first place, right? So you can quickly hit the key targets with this super expensive and super precise weaponry, and then they're kind of done, right? And then they surrender, so the war lasts like 2 weeks, and it's over, right? The proverbial example of a Desert Storm and things like that. However, the nation or an adversary that is ready to fight you, okay, that is determined to fight you, cannot be disabled in this way, right? Because you simply don't have enough laser bombs, roughly speaking, to destroy all of them, right? My apologies, I'm still kind of sick. So you will have to kind of fall back a level and return to just regular conventional artillery, okay? That's kind of my point. However, yet another however in this video, now we live in an age of microprocessor in every pocket, right? And a satellite internet on top of it, okay? And we have FPV drones now, okay? And of course, drones themselves, I mean the flying ones, significantly helped traditional conventional artillery in the sense that they've allowed real-time, close-up, guidance is an incorrect word. Well, you get the idea, okay? You can point your artillery much more precise with the help of a drone that is just hovering and observing where you're hitting, right? You don't need, like, to send people there and radio you back, like, okay, just, 1 kilometer forward, like you missed 1 kilometer or something, blah, blah, blah. Like, you can actually correct your fire right away with the help of a drone. So yeah. However, those same drones can also be used in another way. So at some moment, a monkey, a proverbial monkey, has figured out that you can actually hang your artillery shell or anything else that explodes. I mean, a mine, a hand grenade, even a Molotov cocktail, if you prefer, anything that explodes, basically. You can put it on the drone itself and just fly it into the enemy, so it explodes into the enemy, So, yeah. So this is what we have with the current iteration of FPV drones. Well, not all of them, obviously, again. But this is the deadliest part of the drone fleet, so to speak, in Ukraine currently, are those FPV kamikaze drones, you know, the ones that have some explosives on them. So yeah, so what do we have as a result of this? And I'm kind of trying to funnel all the previous points I've made into a single point right now, okay? So what we have as a result is a certain, like, hybrid of a traditional artillery that just shoots somewhere there, you know, like reconnaissance tells us there's enemies somewhere there, so we just shell them, you know, with like literally thousands of rounds, and we hope we get some of them. And we do get some of them just randomly, you know. So that's one end of the spectrum, and the opposite end of the spectrum is this super precise, laser-guided, whatever, satellite-driven, you know, missiles like Tomahawks or bombs or whatever, you know. So we have a hybrid of this. It's an FPV drone, so you can actually see where it's hitting, you know, etc., etc. But at the same time, it's just kind of just an artillery shell, if you think about it, right? So, and this is kind of the main point of this video, could be a conclusion of this video, is basically that those FPV drones are basically the same thing as, you know, the artillery of old. However, it has guided munitions now. It has guided projectiles now, right? So, just like, you know, the super expensive thingies had. And again, the cost is very different than these laser-guided bombs. Actually, not very different. So, a usual artillery shell, and again, that depends on the shell, that depends on the country, etc., is like maybe $2,000, roughly, again, a rough estimate. Whereas the cost of an FPV drone, like, some people, again, it floats around, but roughly maybe $20,000, right? I mean, with an explosive thing, the whole thing combined. So that would be like an order of magnitude bigger. However, if you think about the expenditures, I mean, how many artillery shells you actually need to spend to bring at least one casualty, you know? It's not even close, you know? I mean, again, speaking about World War I, like, the lunar landscape of Europe, doesn't happen, you know, out of the blue. It's just caused by the fact that you need a lot of those shells to do any significant damage, because it's kind of semi-random, as we said, right? But anyway, it's still pretty close to the cost of a regular, let's say, default generic laser-guided bomb, which is roughly $30,000, as far as I'm aware, at least. Okay, so that will be $20,000 for an FPV drone and $30,000 for a laser-guided bomb. But still, I have to say that the cost of the FPV drones is dropping significantly in the recent years, again, mostly because of the scaling of manufacturing, specifically in Europe and Ukraine itself, okay? And also countries like Iran and Russia. Yeah, but there's another aspect. And I really hope that I didn't yet quite, like, distract you with all of those, like, semi-digressions. Like, I promise you all of this has a point and it will condense together. So, another thing you have to consider is that to use the laser-guided bombs, for example, or any aviation bombs for that matter, you need all of this, you know, infrastructure. You need aircraft to begin with, right? Not only the aircraft, you also need, you know, the airfields. You also need the, you know, whatever manufacturing of those aircraft, or at least maintenance thereof, right? You also need schools where they train pilots and blah, blah, blah. And all of this is very expensive, right? Even the fuel is very expensive. Speaking of Iran, you know, it's gonna become even more expensive in the future, right? So the cumulative, the total cost of a laser-guided bomb, for example, is actually much higher just because of all those implied expenses, right? Yeah. Plus, even the traditional artillery just doesn't grow on trees, you know. Like, to make it, to maintain it, to repair it, etc., you also need significant, let's say, effort on the scale of the whole nation, or something to that effect, you know. Whereas this guided munition, this guided projectile, in the form of an FPV drone, you can actually make it yourself almost, you know, in a garage, roughly speaking. So yeah. So this is a big difference, right? And the modern drones, they can actually, their range is huge. Like it's tens of kilometers. That could be like 50, you know. Again, look at modern developments in Ukraine. And by modern, I mean 2026. Like they're literally hitting targets like 50 kilometers off, I mean, away from the person guiding them. It's crazy, you know. Even the fiber optics controlled drones, they can go for like 20 kilometers. Imagine like 20 kilometers of fiber optic cable behind the drone. And this is the case in Ukraine right now. It's absolutely crazy, I'm telling you. And it's a huge revolution. I mean, it was clear like already like 3 years ago, it was clear that the drones will become the major turning point in the development of modern warfare, right? And now it's evident, it's so evident that even Eugene the philosopher talks about this, right? Which is not a military channel, not even close, but still. Anyway, it's still not the main conclusion that I will bring, but hopefully you can see the idea, right? So the main conclusion, kind of the original idea I will present to you right now is that the future of modern mass armies will probably lie, at least as it seems right now, in reorienting of these squads of roughly 10 people onto using drones, okay? Instead of machine guns previously. Or probably not instead of, but with, you know? So previously the squad was centered around a machine gun, and now there will be maybe a machine gun. I'm very doubtful of that. Like, I think machine guns will become pretty rare, because again, face-to-face combat became pretty rare. Once again, take a look at Ukraine. I mean, in mass armies, okay? Whereas this basically artillery support, okay, let me try to come to it from another place a little bit, reformulate it a little bit. So I do not think, though it is the case in Ukraine, but I do not think that the future will bring us like the whole regiments, as we said, you know, like thousands of people of just drone operators. I don't think that is the future. Even though, as I've already said, like this is the case in Ukraine, there are like regiments of drone operators. But I don't think it's flexible enough, okay? So that's why I think what will happen is we'll have specialists, I mean, kind of trained specifically to operate drones in each unit as a part of the unit itself, okay? So just like we've had previously a machine gun operator, if you can call it that, a machine gunner basically, right? In every unit, now you will also have a drone operator in every unit, maybe two actually, okay? So yeah. So what will it achieve? So machine gun previously, what it did to a squad, it basically gave a squad a suppressing power of a whole company, right? Roughly 100 people focused into a single person. And now the same squad will have an artillery power of at least one gun, you know? But even better than just one gun because it's precise, right? It's guided. You can actually fly, and you can see like thousands of those videos of these, you know, FPV drones, shooting making the video of how they fly into a Russian soldier, like literally just individually into the guy. It's actually like, it's so surreal and so hellish, those types of videos, but yeah. So what I'm saying anyway, is that I think that's the future. I think those squads, the squads themselves would probably not disappear, right? Because, well, at the very least, because of all the bureaucratic inertia of those big armies, etc. But yeah, what the drone operators in every squad will give the squad is basically an artillery capacity, right? And it also kind of very well aligns with this general trend of increase in, mobility and like universality, if that's a word in English, with the same meaning as in Russian, like flexibility, right? Just like in Alpha Centauri, Corazon Santiago said, right? Mobility, flexibility, and initiative. Like those are the three pillars of warfare. So a drone operator in every squad gives you exactly that. Mobility, flexibility, and initiative. You can hit targets 50 kilometers from you precisely, like individually. You can fly into an individual soldier and explode him, right? Or a tank, or an APC, or a building, a bunker, like a camouflaged artillery nest, or a sniper nest, like whatever, like it's crazy actually, right? So yeah, that's what I think will happen. It's the drone operators essentially will replace the machine gun men, if that's the word, of old, or maybe will be combined with them, right? Something to that effect. I don't think like a whole regiment of drone operators is effective. It's just not, maybe for a mass scale war like in Ukraine it is, but generally speaking, again, you lose flexibility because you'll have to spread them all over the front anyway, right? And modern warfare doesn't even have fronts to begin with, except, outliers like Ukraine war. So yeah, I would still argue that squads will receive an extra person, essentially. Or, this person will replace the machine gun operator of old. Yeah. So basically, this is the idea. And you may think, that's kind of the PS to this video, that in such circumstance, like, how can people even wage war? Because, if you can be hit by an artillery shell, like literally flying in your window, because they know you're there in this building, right? When the operator is like literally beyond the horizon, when you're standing, like the horizon is 9 kilometers? They can be like 20 kilometers away and still hit you. Precisely you, Can you even wage war in these circumstances, And the answer is probably not. But who cares, Because it's not the people who are being killed who decide whether to wage war or not. It's the politicians and whoever governs the politicians, if you know what I mean, right? Again, watch my video. What is actually going on, right? About the war in Iran specifically. And so far, my predictions hold, right? The blockade of oil will continue at least until autumn, because you have to have prolonged, hunger and rationing. So the power of the governments worldwide would increase even more, because that's the point. Anyway, obviously also such refurbishment of military, not everyone will do it, right? Some people are probably still fighting with bow and arrows and spears and stuff. But anyway, those that will prevail. And so far as I'm aware, only Europe is realizing this point. And again, a big chunk of Ukrainian drones are being produced in Europe. And again, it's makes sense considering what I've been talking about in the last 6 years or about so, that Europe is the next world hegemon, right? Well, there you go. Hopefully you get my point. If you don't, ask me in the comments, or argue with me in the comments. That would be even more fun. Thank you for watching. The eons are closing.
If you wish to support me, please consider joining my Patreon. That is patreon.com/philosopher. See the link in the description. Or if you have a scientific theory of your own and you'd like my help in developing it, please join my alternative science coaching program, also available through Patreon.
the drones need you. They look up to you.